It's too late, Krueger. I know the secret now. This is just a dream.
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-files, where each week we enter the world of a great film. We explore its themes, the history, the filmmaking, and the influence it has on us today. My name is Steve Morris. I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Roca. I'm a voiceover artist, producer, writer, and host over at Collider, co-host of the Top 10, co-host of the Geek Buddies, and proud host of the Deep Cut, and, of course, loving being a co-host of the Cine-files, and excited to do our annual Halloween movie, Steve.
Most people know that this is not either yours or my favorite genre.
Right.
And so it's always with a bit of trepidation that I enter the world of a scary film.
Yes.
And you know what I have to say, though? You know, we talk about entering the world of a great film, and I haven't watched this movie in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'll answer the question I always ask you first.
Okay.
Is how I came to this film.
Go ahead.
This is one of those movies that I know I didn't see it in the theater.
Yes.
I know that I watched the whole thing at one point or another.
Right.
End of high school, early college, sort of that age. But where I really saw it was one of those movies that was always playing in the background at the party or at your friend's house.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I saw scenes of it over and over and over again, or came in the middle or watched the end and was watching it and then got distracted because there was a cute girl I wanted to talk to or something like that. But then I was too scared of talking to her, so I went back and watched the movie. But then I got scared of the movie, and then I was just really trapped. So I went over to eat some Doritos or something like that. Maybe I revealed too much about my childhood, but the number of times I actually sat and watched this whole movie, beginning to the end, are very, very small.
Yeah.
Hadn't looked at it again in a long time. I'd seen a few of the sequels and watched it a few nights ago, and I gotta say I was kind of disappointed in it. It was not as I remembered liking it more than I did this time. So while I think this is an important movie and an influential movie in a lot of ways, and this is one of our big slasher guys, along with Jason and Michael and Leatherface, like Freddy Krueger is huge, I didn't love it as much as I thought I was going to when I sat down to watch it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think it's not one that holds up in retrospect. I know a lot of people probably listening to us getting very, very offended. That being said, Freddy Krueger is fantastic.
Yeah.
And regardless of what the very dated 80s look of the film is and the 80s approach to horror is, and when you say groundbreaking, I'm going to have to be convinced of that. Like, in my opinion, I don't remember it if it was groundbreaking or not. It doesn't feel groundbreaking in 2019.
I don't think it's filmically groundbreaking at all. Like, I don't think that's. I mean, in terms of entering into a slightly different world of horror.
Yes.
That's what I.
Well, that's
say.
fair.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it did. And Freddy is. If there's any reason to watch this film, it is Freddy Krueger. It is Robert Englund's performance as Freddy Krueger, and Heather Langenkamp is fantastic as well. But overall, and of course you get a little Johnny. Overall, though, I do think the film is kind of dated, not as interesting or as fun as some of the installments actually that come after this, especially Nightmare on Elm Street 3, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, that's
Dream Warriors.
I haven't seen it in a long time, but that's my memory. That's by far the best one.
Right.
A little bit about Wes Craven, because this is our first time going into a Wes Craven film.
Oh.
He was raised in a fundamentalist family, unsurprisingly. His mom told him that movies were the devil's playground.
As well they are.
He didn't really watch them. Actually, his mom is totally right. And he had sounds like a pretty scary dad with a pretty explosive temper. And he didn't start watching movies. It wasn't when he went into college. He actually went into college, graduated college, started teaching college, and only then did he start watching movies. So he's in his late 20s, starts watching movies and goes, oh, this is what I want to do, quits teaching college, moves to New York, and tries to figure out anything he can do to get into the movie biz. And he's working as assistant editor, he's working as a PA, he's working everywhere around, every kind of low-budget film, commercial, industrial, everything he could do to be in the film world.
He's hustling.
He is hustling like crazy. And then he gets just someone says, hey, why don't you write a scary movie? Which he doesn't know. It's not like he was into scary movies. That was not his thing, not his goal. And writing scary movies. The first one he directs is The Hills Have Eyes. And I'm sorry, the first one he directed is Last House on the Left.
Yeah, Last House on the Left.
Followed by The Hills Have Eyes.
Man.
And he started to get a notoriety as a scary movie director, and someone said, okay, well, what are you going to write next? And he read an article in the LA Times about these refugees coming from Cambodia and Laos, where there were these young men and these families who were afraid to go to sleep. And apparently in the late 70s, early 80s, there were several incidents of the family saying, please just go to sleep, you'll be okay. And the guys are literally chugging coffee and taking no-dos because they're having nightmares because of the traumatic experiences they had in their home countries. And several of them finally did go to sleep and never woke up.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And that it was those stories that gave him the idea for A Nightmare on Elm Street.
That's genius.
Yeah. And unfortunately, no one wanted to buy this movie. Disney said, we will buy it, but we would like you to make it much, much softer and turn it into kind of a young adult teen kid thing that'll be much more warm and fun. And sure, there's a bad guy but it's not a horror film. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that.
A Bad Dream on Elm Street.
A bad dream. Yeah. A slightly uncomfortable dream on Elm Street.
A terrible nap on Elm Street. One thing I want to throw out to you when you mentioned this idea of the Cambodian immigrants and what have you, like, I wonder if you want to revisit The Killing Field someday, because that is one 1980s film, brother, that I never ever saw. And Sam Waterston is apparently fantastic in this, and obviously Hang S. Nor won the Oscar for it, and I have never seen it.
I have seen it once.
Okay.
It was really good.
Yes.
It was hard.
Oh,
It's
a brutal film.
maybe we should do it. Oh, it's a brutal film. Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Because I have very little memory of it. You know what I remember more is I remember swimming to Cambodia, the
Spalding Gray one.
Spalding Gray, because
Right.
that's his stories about having a small part on that movie.
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
I had no idea.
I'm pretty sure.
Wow. Well, maybe I'll do a double bill one day and watch both of those.
I love that. Swimming to Cambodia is an unbelievable one-man show.
Okay.
Well, maybe this is something we're doing next.
All right.
So it's you know what? Something we talked about. I have seen it, but I don't have any memory of it. We're talking about going into a movie that neither you or I know well. We've talked about doing that a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we'll do.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
It'd be fun going into that movie. Yeah.
it's a joy. So he's trying to sell the film, and he takes it to Paramount. Paramount really wants it, except they're developing another movie about dreams in the early 80s. And he guesses what it was?
Brainstorm?
Dreamscape.
Dreamscape. Yes, the Dennis Quaid
Dennis
one.
Quaid, which I watched a bunch and thought it was awesome.
Not gonna lie to you, there's a really interesting scene in that movie.
There's a bunch of stuff that scared the crap out of me in that movie, too.
Was it come out 13, 14 years old? Was it come out 94?
I think it's 82 or 83.
82 or 83.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
There's a scene in that movie because I remember seeing, and there's like a sex scene in that movie that I remember as a young, nubile boy going like, "Oh my god, that's hot." So that's what I remember that movie.
and it has the guy. It has the bad guy is the Warriors.
Yes.
come
Yeah,
out
that
and
dude.
who's also in 48 Hours.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Yes,
All right.
he is.
But we've really digressed.
Do you remember Dreamscape?
That's what I'm talking
Oh,
about.
do you remember Brainstorm?
I don't know if I ever saw it. I remember
Christopher
that
Walken, Natalie Wood. It's the
I
one
can
she
remember
died
the
on.
commercial.
Yeah.
But I don't remember the movie.
That was great. I love that. Like these early 80s kind of weird exploration of the brain type movies.
that
Altered States. Yeah.
Yes. Altered States also freaked me out.
I would love to do Altered States.
I haven't seen it since the 80s.
We should just do an 80s retrospective for like 3 months.
I don't know. We've gotten all sorts. Every once in a while, there's weird pushback that they don't like. So a couple of people who do not like the movies that we've been doing lately.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're gonna do what we're gonna do. like we've done Buster Keaton. We've done The Third Man. We've done and sometimes it's gonna be Altered States or Dreamscape.
Let us enjoy. Let us have our choices too.
Yeah. But seriously, folks, if you really don't like the movies that we're doing, there's one solution to that, which is visit patreon.com/the Cine-files. Pay some money, support the show, give us your picks. Those are the things we take most seriously, just like we took this pick seriously from Sean Higgins. Thanks again, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
So then finally, the one person that seems to be interested in it is Bob Shane, who's the head of New Line.
Yes, New Line.
And New Line at the time has never made a movie. They are a distribution company only, and a small distribution company out of New York. And this is the movie that makes New Line. Bob Shane somehow gets $1.8 million together. They start to cast the film. They go with some of the interesting people, by the way. David Warner was who originally was going to play Freddy Krueger.
Oh, wow. Good choice.
Yeah.
David Warner, remember in Time After Time. He was great Jack the Ripper in Time After Time.
And he's in Star Trek 6, which we talked about as well.
Counselor Gorgon.
And just as they're about to shoot the movie, they've gotten their locations, they've cast the whole film, the money totally falls through.
Oh, wow.
And Bob Shane, at the last minute, manages to raise the money. Like, literally, they're going to shut down the whole thing, and he manages to raise the money to make the movie. So he's, in a lot of ways, the hero of this.
Wait, let me ask you something.
Yes.
Do you have any background on the casting and how they found Heather or anything like that?
I have a little bit.
Okay.
A little bit.
Let's get that real quick, and then we'll jump in.
Okay, sure. I was gonna wait and get to it in a minute, but
okay.
That's okay.
I apologize.
No, so Heather, what's her name?
Langenkamp?
Langenkamp. He was looking for someone who was really strong and really all American and not Hollywood at all. And it sounds like he auditioned hundreds of people, and there's rumors that people like Courtney Cox auditioned, that there's all like the whole cadre of young women in the mid 80s came and auditioned for this, and he picked her. She was a student at Stanford and dropped out for a year to do some acting. And it's funny, I listened to the commentary track. She is really smart.
Yes, she is.
She's very cool. I like her quite a
agreed.
bit. The other story I know is the Johnny Depp story, which is Johnny Depp had no intention. My understanding is he was in a band, and he goes with a buddy who I believe is Jackie Earle Haley.
Oh, wow.
Who comes to audition for this movie. And I swear to God, this is the story that I've heard.
Yeah.
And I don't have it 100%. I know he went with Jackie Earle Haley, is that he was literally doing the thing that all actors have fantasized about, which he's sitting in the room, and his buddy goes in and auditions and comes out, and the casting director looks at him and says, "Are you an actor?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "I guess." And that is how he... And apparently, there were a bunch of other young heartthrobs up for this part. And Wes Craven took all the pictures home, and they were named people. I don't remember who they were.
Right.
And said, well, I probably should cast this person. And his 13-year-old daughter looked at the headshots and said, Johnny Depp! Johnny Depp! And he went, okay.
Wow.
And this is his first film.
And how ironic that decades later, Jackie Earle Haley would reprise the role of Freddy Krueger.
I know,
in the
right?
remake.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And so speaking of the movie, shall we get into it?
Yeah.
We're following some person doing something in some kind of a furnace boiler room place, and we hear the breathing, and he's cutting some pipe, and he's welding, and then we see those knives going onto the fingers, and the fingers going onto the gloves, and we see that hand. And that is the opening of A Nightmare on Elm Street. And then there's a young woman in white. And that's Amanda Wyss, I think.
Amanda Wyss, yeah.
Amanda Wyss. And she's
Also in Better Off Dead.
Oh.
That's her.
That's hilarious. And she walks down a hallway, and there's water on the ground, and there's dripping, and she's running, and it's backlit, and she's scared, and we hear this voice, and we hear these whispers, and she turns and looks, and we hear this breathing, and we see a goat. Very odd sort of moment. And we go into this basement. Apparently, this basement is the furnace room of the Lincoln Heights jail, just east of here. And it is a very creepy looking
that
place.
noise.
Apparently, was so covered in falling down asbestos that this place, its building's still there, or was still there 10 years ago, has been condemned, and no one is allowed in there. And that is where they shut. But it is a really creepy... I mean, that is that place. They didn't dress this very much at all.
Yeah.
And there's red backlighting, and we see a figure in the distance in the shadows, lots of steams, and we hear noise on the pipes, and we see the fingers, the blades shred through some fabric. And then we see a little bit of that hat. That hat, by the way, was apparently some old dude scared Wes Craven when he was like 8 years old, and he wore that kind of hat. And that is why that hat is what Freddy Krueger wears.
That makes sense.
Yep. And he disappears, and then she walks forward, and then he reappears behind her, screams, wakes up. And this is our opening of A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah. What a great beginning.
It is. It is a genuinely great beginning. I wonder, like, what is the greatest nightmare wake-up screaming cut in the history of film? There was one in a movie literally really recently that we just did, and I can't remember what it was.
Okay.
But it is a trope in films. Yeah. Oh, it's just a dream. Oh, we had it in Apollo 13.
Yeah.
When she wakes up because she's had the dream about the spaceship being destroyed before they launch.
Yeah, good point.
There's a crucifix behind her. Mom asks if she's okay. She says it's just a dream.
Ooh, that mom. That's an 80s mom.
It is. She is so problematic, and she's so one of the interesting. Again, this goes to the tropes, the things we talked about. We talked about this a year ago when we did Halloween.
Yes,
there is these tropes, and one of the tropes is the disconnected parents.
Yes,
is that we're in suburban America, and your parents cannot be trusted. And this particular one is horrible. She's got some scummy boyfriend who kind of pulls her back, and she obviously doesn't care about her daughter at all.
Nope.
She looks down and sees that her nightgown is shredded, and she grabs that cross. Religious paraphernalia does not apparently protect you from Freddy Krueger.
It does not.
No, this is not that kind of movie.
Nope.
Someone should tell them that that's vampires.
Right.
It's not dream demons. That's
Right.
not. It's not going to work here.
Not devil demons.
And then we hear this nursery rhyme. This shot's actually kind of a complicated shot because we see the little girls that are playing on the seesaw or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's a diffusion on the lens, which makes everything look kind of foggy. And we're in slow motion. And then as we move over to the car, we ramp up from slow motion to regular speed. So there's one dude on the camera who's changing the speed of the camera while another person is operating the dolly. Another person, the first AC, is handling focus because every time distance changes, we have to change focus. Right. And then there's another person who pulls that diffusion off so that whole foggy look goes away. And then we dolly over to the car where we see Nancy, our main character. We see Johnny Depp. We see Tina is with them in this old cool 50s convertible. And then we dolly back, and there's even a zoom in this shot. So there's actually a whole bunch of stuff going on in terms of filmmaking. And this is where we hear Tina talking about her dream.
It was the worst nightmare I ever had. You wouldn't believe it.
Matter of fact, I had a bad dream last night myself.
And then up comes some jerk of a guy, which is Rod, whose name I don't have here.
Right.
And he immediately starts making jokes and harassing Tina. And what I had forgotten is that's actually her boyfriend.
Yeah.
I thought he's a jerk because I hadn't seen the movie in a long time. And I went, oh no, this is the jerk who happens to be her boyfriend.
Yep.
It's later that night. We're back at Tina's house. Mom is out of town. There's some gag about a tape deck that's going to convince Johnny Depp's mom that he's actually at his cousin's at the airport or something. It's kind of cute. And then as we talk more, the subject of the dream comes up, and Nancy says,
That's amazing you saying that. That made me remember the dream I had last night.
What'd you dream?
I dreamed about a guy in a dirty red and green sweater.
Well, what about the fingernails?
Oh, he scraped his fingernails along things. Actually, they were more like finger knives or something he'd made himself. But they made a horrible sound. It's like, scream.
Nancy, you dreamed about the same creep I did.
and now, of course, one of the things about horror films is that you're always ahead of the characters.
Yes.
Because you bought a ticket to the horror film. They don't know they're in a horror film until we get to Scream. But so we go like, you're having the same dream. It's the bad guy. It's real. You're going to die. And they go, huh, that's weird. And even Johnny Depp looks up when we hear about the dirty red and green sweater. Like, wait, what? But before we can get into that, we hear something outside.
Yeah.
What do we do in a horror movie when we hear something outside?
Go take a look.
I guess we got to go take a look.
Yeah, better investigate.
Go outside, calling for a cat, making some noise. And then what happens is Rod, the kind of jerky boyfriend, totally blindsides Johnny Depp, knocks him down, grabs Tina, covering her mouth, drags her into the house. She says, please help me from this lunatic, but then laughs. And only then do we go like, oh, that's her boyfriend.
Right. It's a nice swerve for what's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which will also be some swerves.
Yeah, true.
And one of the other interesting things, of course, is we're going to have a couple that goes and have sex, and we're going to have another girl who doesn't have sex, and the virgin girl is another horror movie trope.
Absolutely.
That she's the one who's going to make it. Sex is not going to be a good thing for you.
This is what's fascinating about it. And I think this is interesting to me about the horror genre because, there are a number of, and especially over at Collider, right? You got Perry and Haley and a number of people who love horror movies, right? Clark Wolf. And I always find this fascinating because they're also very powerful. They're very strong feminist women. They're very much about representation, very much about respecting women in the media and in the film. But for some reason, horror movies get this incredible pass from some of these female critics who love horror movies. And I want to understand why, because like they're very exploitive of the female body. You don't see many penises, if any, in 80s horror movies. It's almost all these nubile women, and they're all having sex. You definitely get shots of the breasts, and then sometimes you get them in the intercourse. You get scenes of them in the intercourse, enjoying the intercourse, and then they're killed.
Yes.
Right? Like Laurie in Halloween, not killed. Here, Heather Langenkamp throughout, she survives.
Yep.
Spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie. But this happens throughout. So I wonder, and this is one of these subtle things.
Well, because Laurie and Nancy, they don't have sex.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. This is one of the interesting subtle things about these horror movies from this time and maybe into the 90s is this idea of the virginal one is actually the hero of the movie. And it's ironic because horror movies are liked by rebellious people, yet these rebellious people are the ones having sex and would probably be the first ones killed in a horror movie.
Well,
so I find the irony or dichotomy of that really interesting.
So here's what this is. I'm happy. I didn't love the movie as much as I had hoped that I would, but I'm happy that we're talking about it for exactly this reason, which is that there seems to be something profoundly culturally important about particularly the from Halloween through the 80s version of the horror slasher film.
Yeah.
Is that there seems to be a rejection or an internal struggle with American values on some interesting fundamental level to me. Because we got Wes Craven, who has a fundamentalist upbringing, in which he was told that movies are the devil's playground.
Right.
And we also have this is our generation. Our generation is the kids. I'm not that much different in age from Nancy and these other people because this comes out in 84. Right. In 84, I was 15.
Yeah.
So this is really our generation. We're Generation X. And that there's this generation of baby boomers and silent generations that are raising us. And they're doing a terrible job. That's what these movies are telling us.
Right.
And that the morality that they're supposed to be imposing on us is failing. And that the people who are then using the openness, the freedom that they've gained post the sexual revolution are exploring that and they are now being punished.
Yeah.
And also their parents who are supposed to protect them from the things that they don't understand, they are not there. Yep. And so there's like this really interesting generational shift that seems to be happening that because I agree with you. It's like, well, what are we saying here? And of course, I don't want to put too big a thing on it because I don't think Wes Craven or John Carpenter in Halloween are saying a lot. I think they're here to scare you.
Yeah.
But it also goes into what scares you. And this is the thing. So I think the concept of Freddy Krueger is way scarier to me than Michael Myers or Jason.
Sure.
Because the thing about this is that this is your mind.
Right.
It's your mind that's scary. It's the idea, like if we suddenly said like, I can't know what's real and what's not real, or if I close my eyes, I might be killed.
Well,
that's scary.
Absolutely. And this is why Freddy is my favorite of
too.
this time. Over Myers and over Michael rather, and whoever else you want to throw out there. Because even Leatherface is realistic. Leatherface is an actual human being that you can actually kill. Right? Whereas Michael Myers is some kind of demon entity or something. This is something else because this can come at any time that you close your eyes. And one of the most essential things that human beings need in life is sleep. So there's no escape from Freddy. Whereas Michael Myers, you can try to escape throughout your life. Maybe you can find a moment. Maybe you can find some hours to get some sleep somewhere, and you're fine. But this is pervasive. And it's also exactly what you said, Steve. There is no greater horror than our mind. And there's no greater thing that can put us into a state of terror like our mind.
Well, and I'll tell you something else, is that I've never actually had a crazed, unstoppable serial killer in a hockey mask coming after me.
Yes.
But I've had a nightmare.
Yes.
And I've had nightmares where I couldn't wake up from the nightmare.
Yeah.
And I've had nightmares where I was, shot in the head or stabbed.
Wow.
Or, like I've had scary nightmares.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't happened very much anymore, but the thing where I think I'm awake and I think I see something outside.
Yeah.
I mean, Karen can tell you, like, I've gotten up, and been ready
shit.
to fight. Like I need to get a weapon and
Really?
protect my wife.
Wow.
And then Karen's like, what's going on? And I'm like, shh. And then, oh no, I was dreaming. Wow. That hasn't happened to me in a long time, but it's happened to me, and so like that sort of, you don't know what's real, and I think most humans have experienced, at least to some degree, some of that.
I have the night terrors.
Yeah.
Where I am awake, but
Paralyzed?
yes.
Yeah.
That is the worst thing in the world I've ever experienced. Because that is like, I think recently was able to move my arm one time.
Yeah.
In all the times that I've had night terrors. And it's usually when I'm really, really tired.
Right.
I don't just have them randomly. But I will say I had a nightmare when Lindley and I first started dating where I thought a spider was attacking me. And apparently I was having this nightmare and Lindley was trying to wake me up.
Ugh.
And her arms waking me up, I thought were
the
spider tentacles.
Yeah.
And I punched her in the shoulder really hard. Like I bruised her shoulder, which was there for a week. And when she woke me up, I felt absolutely terrible about it and was so apologetic for days afterwards. But it scared me that I could have a dream like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Where you could react to it.
I apparently once elbowed Karen in the head. I mean, I don't think it was super hard.
Yeah, right.
But like, I think I just went, ugh.
Yeah.
And well, have you ever listened to the Mike Birbiglia? I've never seen the Sleepwalk with Me movie.
Yeah.
But he does the whole monologue, was on This American Life.
Oh.
And he's a sleepwalker and tells multiple stories that are insane.
Riley at work, Mark Riley, he is a sleepwalker.
Yeah.
He has smashed his face up sleepwalking off windows to the point where they have to like safeguard certain things when he starts to walk. I think I might be wrong, but this might be true. I think Julie sometimes ties her ankle to his ankle, so when he starts to get up to do sleepwalking, she wakes up with him and like makes sure he's okay.
So
That's
this goes
crazy.
this goes back to the thing of like the Freddy Krueger, like someone attacking you through your dreams.
Right.
That's scary.
Yeah.
It is a genuinely scary thing to me.
Because you can't control your dream.
Yeah. No. Well, maybe you can. So we're done with the sex with Tina and Rod.
Hey-o.
It seemed to go well.
Yeah.
They both seem happy about
Tina
it.
seemed very happy.
Johnny Depp and listening to the sex downstairs, they weren't so happy about it.
Right, super frustrated.
Nancy is down in Tina's bed where that crucifix was on the wall. It's fallen down, and then we watch a face appear in the wall behind her and stretch out towards her. And then just as she looks up and retreats back in the wall, she touches the wall. It's solid.
Yeah.
It's really nice. And do you know how they did that?
No.
Apparently in 1984, there was this brand new material that was very exciting called spandex.
Oh.
That is a spandex wall.
Nice.
Upstairs, Tina hears a noise. Rod, did you hear this? He doesn't wake up. He's snoring. So here's something at the window. Goes to the window. A little pebble hits the window. And then another one hits the window. Breaks the window. And she decides, as you do, to head downstairs and go outside.
This is what Eddie Murphy talks about in his bit.
Exactly.
That white people like to run to this stuff. Black people get the hell out of the house.
I would have been in the house and said, oh, baby, this is beautiful. We got a chandelier hanging up here, kids outside playing. It's a beautiful neighborhood. We ain't got nothing to wear. I really love them. This is really nice. Too bad we can't stay, baby.
And she comes outside, and we hear Tina. She walks down. We see a garbage can roll down the street, and then we see Freddy with the super long arms. Oh, yeah. People
cool.
love this effect. I didn't think it looked so cheesy. I really was like, I remembered it scaring me when I was young. I was looking at it now, and it's a really low budget 80s movie. Yeah. The way they did this, there's two guys with fishing poles on the garages on either side of the alley that are just holding up the arms and moving them with their fishing poles. It's very, very expensive. I do love that the fingers scrape sparks on the walls, and Freddy chases her. It's a little bit ridiculous. She runs through the gate. He appears behind the tree by just sort of magically appearing. And it is, I do have to say, the fact that we don't have the giant person like Michael Myers. We have, Robert Englund is really interesting and different.
Yes.
And then he cuts off some of his fingers, which squirt out sort of yellow-green blood. He grabs her. She wrestles with him. She rips off his face. One of the ideas Wes Craven has, he said, all these other guys, Michael Myers and Jason, they have masks. And he wanted Freddy's mask to be his face.
Yeah.
That's where the burned, scarred face comes from. Is like, oh, the mask is his face. And all they did here was they took the Freddy mask and they put it on a doll's face, a mannequin face. And then they covered the mannequin face with KY jelly and just slid one mask off. And now you have the thing underneath. And it looks really creepy and gross. Up in the bedroom, Rod wakes up and hears screams, and there is some crazy struggle going on in the bed. And he gets her with his claws, and we see her skin rip open and start bleeding. This is where they got into trouble with the ratings board of just how much blood we could see.
Oh, wow.
And then she is lifted out of bed and spun around up to the wall, up to the ceiling. Rod from down on the ground is looking up as she slithers across the ceiling, and it is really intense and freaky looking.
It's so funny because Poltergeist was what, 2 years before this, or I think
So, yeah, 82.
and we
That sounds
had
right.
Joe Beth doing the same thing in the last attack from the
I
Poltergeist.
have no memory of Poltergeist at all.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
I think I saw it once. Because I didn't watch scary movies.
I don't think we can wait a year to talk about Poltergeist. I love Poltergeist. We talk about it maybe down the road, but
right.
yeah, that film is so good. It still holds up. Craig T. Nelson and Joe Beth are incredible in that film. But yeah, that's one of the sequences as well. And of course, the first time we saw this was the Fred Astaire
Fred
stuff.
Astaire, yeah.
So to see it being used in this way, and it's so well used here.
It's interesting that I hadn't thought about. I didn't remember that it was in Poltergeist.
Yeah.
Because the other movie that it's in that we talked about is Close Encounters in the truck.
Oh, right.
Is that he spins around in the truck and
Yes.
it's the same effect. And so I
He's
wonder.
so helpless in that truck, yeah.
And I wonder because Spielberg, there's all the rumors that Spielberg really kind of shadow directed Poltergeist.
Yeah, Toby Hooper's thing.
And the now Wes Craven sees it, and they did the cheapest version of it they possibly could. And she falls down, just huge amounts of blood. And of course, now our other kids, Johnny Depp and Nancy, they run up to see her, and all they see is this horribleness in the blood, and Rod has disappeared.
Poor Rod.
Poor Rod. John Saxon.
Yeah, man.
He was the name dude in this movie.
Of course.
Yeah.
John Saxon was big in the 80s.
Was. It's so funny because for me, it's just Enter the Dragon.
Yeah, right.
Like I know I saw him. I think he's in like Electric Horseman, and he's in some other
Yep.
like random things.
He had TV series, too.
What TV series was he?
Oh, God. You're asking me to remember.
Oh,
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Hold still.
It's not the Schmodown.
Keep
It's not-
talking.
okay,
Yeah,
I'll
right,
keep
exactly.
talking.
The Schmodown of TV. No, you're right. Okay. Yeah.
What?
No, I'm wrong. He had been in a bunch of movies, and he'd only been occasionally in some TV shows. So that's my fault. Yeah, I thought he'd been in TV series, but I thought he'd been in TV series, but he was just as guest stars in these.
It's just
series.
a regular guest star in
Yep.
all sorts of stuff.
$6 Million Man, Wonder
course.
Woman, Rockford
Of course,
Files.
yes.
Yeah, yep.
Those are all the shows.
Gunsmoke.
I'm sure there's a Love Boat in there somewhere.
There's 6 episodes of Fantasy Island.
Oh,
Got a lot of
oh
fantasy.
man, so many shows that I should never watch because I watched them all the time.
Love Boat, though, still. That's a good one.
Does it?
I love Love Boat.
You've watched it recently?
I have every once in a while. Wow. Yeah, because what'd you say to me once? When you said I was honored, you're like, I love the Catskill stuff, and so to
Sure.
me, going back watching Love Boat is like going back and watching all those old performers that I loved growing up.
right.
So I love watching.
Well,
those
they all
episodes.
show up.
They do. That's what I love about it.
Plus Jimmy J.J. Walker and,
Of course.
and Charo and
Charo is always on the
She's
Love
always on the Love Boat.
Boat. The best.
All right. And we hear that mom, he's the local sheriff or lieutenant, or he's the cop. And we hear a little bit that Tina's mom has disappeared to Vegas with that creepy guy that she was with. Dad has abandoned mom. And they kind of go, well, this looks like a rape and a murder. And their boyfriend, Rod, they had a fight, and must be what happened. And now we find out that Nancy is John Saxon's daughter. And she's like, no, that's not right. Yeah, they had a fight.
Right.
But that's not what happened. He didn't kill her.
Tina, she dreamed this was gonna happen.
What?
She had a nightmare that someone was trying to kill her. That's why we were there, Mom. But she just didn't want to sleep alone.
We're back at Nancy's house, and this is shot in West Hollywood. This is on Genesee.
Oh, wow.
And this is apparently, there are pilgrimages to Elm Street from fans and have been forever to this one block in West Hollywood.
Oh my God.
And it is a very Midwestern looking block. We hear a news report that that everyone's searching for Rod, and now we meet Mom, which is Ronnie Blakely.
Yep.
Academy Award nominated actress from Nashville.
Oh, the Altman film, yeah.
So, I watched these commentary tracks, and this one happened to be, it was Wes Craven, it was Heather, it was the DP, and it was John Saxon.
Nice.
And you could always hear little weird things. Every time the name Ronnie came up, they're like, oh, Ronnie.
Really?
So I get the sense,
man. Yeah.
like she showed up with different makeup every time, and that I get the sense she was not in the same movie as everybody else, and it kind of shows.
But it also adds a kitsch element to the film that helps, I think, maintain its legendary status.
Because she is this crazy alcoholic,
Yeah.
weird, disconnected, odd mom.
She seems like a groupie from the 60s who's like all of a sudden has a kid.
Well, here's the thing. So you've watched more of these movies and know them better
Sure,
than I do.
sure.
I don't know them at all. And I'm sure if we had one of these, fans who really know this stuff, they would be able to explain all this to me. But the backstory of this makes very little sense to me.
Okay.
And so as we get to it,
Yeah.
I might have a few questions I want
Sounds
to go
good.
over. And we kind of find out that I don't think Nancy slept at all last night, and she's going to go off to school. And she says, I'll sleep at school. And she heads off. And of course, as she's walking, there's creepy music. And then she looks back and sees a dude in a suit watching her, which I think is Robert Englund.
Yeah.
And then he disappears. I don't quite understand what that is there. And then she gets grabbed by Rod, still with a bloody hand, hiding in the bushes, saying, I didn't kill her.
I never touched her.
You were screaming like crazy.
There was somebody else there.
The door was locked from your side.
Don't look at me like I'm some fucking fruitcake or something.
He's freaking out.
He's freaking out. And then there is Dad, John Saxon, with a gun on Rod because he followed Nancy, used her to get to Rod. And Rod starts to run away, and she steps in front of the gun.
Yeah.
Which is a really scary moment. And then the police are there, and they grab him, and they arrest him.
Right.
And she's pissed at Dad.
Daddy, you used me.
What the hell were you doing going to school today for anyway?
Off at school, we're having a report on Hamlet, and there's some talk about the gravediggers. And then what's so weird is then she asks the guy to get up and read from Julius Caesar. And it's like, weren't we just talking about Hamlet?
I know, it's weird.
And it's because he wanted these lines that are from the Julius Caesar monologue.
Mm-hmm.
And Nancy starts to fall asleep. And to me, these are the scariest things in the movie.
Yeah.
Her starting to fall asleep.
Yeah.
It's not what actually happens in the dreams that are as scary. It's the watching her eyes slowly close. And you're like, don't do it.
You feel helpless.
Just like, stay awake.
Yeah.
You got to stay awake.
Yeah.
And I love one of the things they did, and this is where I don't think the movie is amazingly great. But what I really like is the mix of you don't quite know when it's real and when it's not real.
Right.
Is that it's not a hard line between she's awake and she's asleep. She's asleep and we start to hear the voice slow down, and then we look over and there is Tina bloody in a body bag. And now she looks back at the dude reading Julius Caesar, and his whole manner has changed, and it's much creepier.
Oh God, I could be bounded in a nutshell and call myself a king of infinite space.
She follows Tina out into the hall, and then she follows the blood trail, sees the body at the end of the hall,
Tina?
which then by invisible hands essentially gets dragged off. Very, very creepy. And there is the hall monitor, a woman in the red and green sweater, and says,
Where's your pass?
Screw your pass.
she goes down some stairs, and we're like, don't go down the stairs. Ends up in this boiler room. Some of the music is good.
Yes.
Some of the music is, man, there's some 80s synth. Apparently the composer, who is Charles Bernstein, I think it is.
Okay.
And I don't know if he's related to an Elmer or a
Elmer
Leonard.
Bernstein's stepson.
And they had no budget. He's like, well, maybe I could just record all the instruments myself in my house. And that's how they did it.
Perfect.
And there's some music that's like straight out of a video game.
Yeah.
That goes, it sounds like laser beams and you're playing Space Invaders or something. And there's Freddy. And she says, who are you? And he cuts open his chest to reveal some maggots and nastiness. And she opens up a curtain to go somewhere, and then she decides to go back, opens up the curtain again, and there's a wall there, so that's not going to work out. There's no way out. We see the claws. He's coming forward slowly. She yells that it's only a dream, and then she burns her hand on purpose,
Yeah.
I think, on a pipe.
To wake her up.
It wakes her up, and she is screaming like crazy.
Yeah, in the middle of class. Yeah.
Yeah. And the teacher's just trying to settle her down and get her home. And then what does she say to him as she leaves? You're going to need a hall pass.
Yeah.
One thing I do like is as she exits the school, which is actually the school is right over here in Silver Lake, John Marshall High School, which is also the school in Grease. And it is the school in, I forget what other movie. There's another big Hollywood movie.
Okay.
But I can't remember which one. It's not 16 Candles, but it's around the same era.
Okay.
Anyway, I love that we sort of see there's a burn on her arm before she notices that there's a burn on her arm, because this is one of the key things in the Nightmare on Elm Street world, which is that things that happen in the dream can come out of the dream.
Yeah. Is it the Breakfast Club? Is that no? That's a different.
No, Breakfast Club shot in Chicago.
It is shot in Illinois.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Shermer High School.
We're at the jail, and Nancy's talking to Rod. We're hear a little bit more about what happened, and
It was dark, but I'm sure there was somebody in there, under the covers with her.
How could somebody be under the covers with you guys without you knowing about it?
How the fuck do I know? I don't expect you to believe me anyway.
And then he says, they talk about the wounds. He said, I saw them happening. It was like 4 razors cutting her at once. And Nancy looks up, and she kind of is backing out of the room. And he says, you don't believe me? And she's like, and she says, no, I believe you. Mm-hmm. And she leaves because she wants to get the hell out.
Yep.
Because Nancy's starting to figure it out. I think she really is a good hero.
Yes.
I think she's a really great hero.
Yeah.
She never is kind of backing down at all.
Yep.
Considering how messed up her mom is and how distant her dad seems to be.
Which kind of makes sense that they would have a daughter like this, because that's a survival tactic, that she doesn't back down and she has to take care of everybody else, right? Because her mom is that way and her dad is that way too.
Absolutely.
Like the way that they are, she has to fill in the holes that they can't provide.
Well, again, this is the generation of latchkey kids.
Right.
Right.
Born to the generation of hippies.
Nancy decides to take a bath.
Yeah. Oh, this scene. I love this scene.
This is the shot of the claws as she starts to fall asleep, coming up between her legs in the bathtub, is a great shot.
A lot of symbolism there.
There's a lot of dirtiness, violence, scary violation, and it is done very quietly.
Yeah.
And I think it violates the rules of the movie.
Ooh.
And here's why.
Proceed.
Everything in this movie is the things that are happening in your dreams.
Right.
Nancy doesn't see that claw come up between her legs in the bathtub. We see it. She is unaware of it. So it isn't something she's seen in her dreams. It's something that we're seeing while she's asleep.
Good call.
So it's not a criticism in any way. It's just like something fundamentally is different happening. And the timing of hearing mom's voice, Nancy, are you okay? And that hand going shoo, back down is great. So here's how they did it. They took a bathtub. They cut a giant hole in the bathtub.
Yeah.
They built a giant water tank under the bathtub. And they have the guy who is the main effects guy, whose name is Jim Doyle, who built all this stuff.
Yeah.
Just hanging out under the water with the claws. He doesn't have scuba. He doesn't have anything. He just comes up for air and says, okay, Jim, get a deep breath. He gets a deep breath. He goes down and he's listening for a loud Wes Craven saying action to lift his hand up and then to take it down. It is the most low tech, but kind of awesome. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
And that is also how they pull Nancy down through. It's just pulling her through a hole in the tub.
Right.
And then we end up underwater, and it's just at a swimming pool somewhere that they covered in black plastic. And they are shooting now in scuba. Wes Craven's in scuba.
Yeah.
He said it was scary as hell being in the black.
Of course.
Under the water. This, by the way, that scares me. That's like one of the real fears of mine.
Oh, let's hear that. What is that?
So I'm a very good swimmer. I grew up swimming a lot. I'm very comfortable in the water. There have been a few times where I've had to be in a river or somewhere like where I've swum under something, like swum under a dock or something like that. Is that the idea, like you read like the fantasy novel where, okay, we have to swim through this underground tunnel and we have to hold our breaths, and where they get past the point of no return. Like, I cannot hold my breath long enough to swim back. I can only swim forward. That is one of my biggest fears.
Wow.
Because I'm a little claustrophobic.
Right.
And so like the in the dark, underwater, holding your breath, that seems scary.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Although when I did scuba dive,
I was just going to ask you. Yeah.
So I'm scuba certified, and when I've scuba, that doesn't scare me that much at all. But I've never gone to a cave dive.
Ooh.
I don't need to do that.
Spelunking.
Have I told you the Hoover cave dive story?
Oh God, no.
So Hoover has done everything.
Yes, of course he has.
So he was exploring underwater caves, And he was doing it alone, which just seems. I mean, there's the way they're doing it is as low tech as you can imagine, which is they have a line, and he has, he's just following the line into the cave. The line leads back, and that's how you find your way back out because it's pitch black.
Yeah.
And the thing is at the time, because this is the 70s, the flashlights don't have very long batteries. So what he said you would do is you would only turn them on for a second, kind of get your bearings, and then turn them off. And when you turn them on, your eyes are so used to the dark that your eyes take a second to adjust, and you turn them off because you don't want to waste the batteries because you don't want a dead flashlight. So you're just feeling your way through the blackness. And then he feels, as he's moving forward, he feels the line get stuck. And it now has slack because it's gotten stuck somewhere.
Right.
And he doesn't want to pull it to free it because if he pulls it, he will break it. He could break it. And if he breaks it, he's going to die.
Yes.
And so he's finally, and the line has slack in it now, so he can't just lead his way back. So he's trying to, in the dark, gather the line. And what he said is, of course, the thing you most want to do is turn on that light. But the light only has limited battery. And so he can only turn it on a few times. So he said it is the scariest moment he's ever had of that line. And this is a guy who has literally wrestled a bear,
right?
And climbed Everest and done every crazy thing you can imagine. And he says that moment, feeling the slack in the line, realizing that the line was caught, and that he would have to find where it was caught, uncatch it in order to make his way back in pitch black, underwater, in a cave, is the scariest moment he ever had. And I heard that and I'm like, fuck yes, that's the scariest thing. But we digress.
Yes.
Then mom comes in and wakes her up and she manages to escape. And she does not tell mom what she just experienced. She said, oh, she just, fell asleep a little bit.
Right.
And later she is not wanting to go to sleep. She grabs some no-dosey kind of pills out of the medicine cabinet. She's staying up late watching, it seems like, scary movies on TV, which might, by the way, be Sam Raimi's Evil Dead.
Oh.
Because apparently Sam Raimi and Wes Craven are buddies, and they each put a poster of this in the background of their scene and the poster of the other movies in Evil Dead and things like that. And she turns off the TV because she hears Johnny Depp at the window. There's her boyfriend Glenn, and he climbs in and they kind of talk, and he asks what she did to her arm, and she talks about how she burned it. Right. They talk about the weird dreams, and he says he slept like a rock. Is he lying?
I don't know. I don't think,
because it seems like he's having some of these dreams.
Right.
So is he like? I don't know. I was just wondering if he's having more dreams with Freddy that he's not saying.
Right. Maybe. And it wouldn't surprise me because he's a young male and he wouldn't admit weakness.
But he also seems very unconcerned.
Yeah. So I don't think Freddy's targeting him.
Yeah.
Fully.
And because he thinks that Rod killed Tina and that's all it is.
Yeah.
And she says,
I'm going to go and look for somebody. And I want you to stand like a sort of a guard, okay? Okay?
Okay.
By the way, what do you think of Johnny Depp's performance in his debut film?
I mean, I can't really judge it, to be honest with you, because I think he understood what he was in. And if he's really the story you said, which is he's in a band and he only got chosen because he looked good in the waiting room, then I don't know what kind of level of acting talent you're expecting from him. But clearly, from this experience, he wanted to do it. So he, eventually became this really incredible actor, and then became this icon for the Pirates of the Caribbean. But there was a time in the late 80s and all through the 90s where Depp was considered one of the best actors because of his independent work.
He at a certain point, from Edward Scissorhands sort of on, turns in one fascinating performance after another.
Yeah,
and here, like, there are young breakthrough performances of actors in first movies where you go, oh, this is someone to be reckoned with.
Right.
This is not that.
No.
Like, this is, yes, I understand why he ends up on 21 Jump Street.
Right.
You know what I mean?
He's still building.
Yeah. But there's some certain moment where he goes, because what's really interesting about his performances is that he really goes for weird shit.
Yeah.
And comes up with a completely interesting way to play a part. And here he's just playing the part as it was written.
Yeah. He's just collecting the paycheck.
Well, I don't even know it's that. He's doing the job that he's required to do. No one asked him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the paycheck thing.
And she says that my life might depend on this and you can't mess it up. And then she turns off the light and he's be like, oh, it's dark. Hey, I'm in the girl's bedroom. No, that's not. I know what you're thinking. And we cut to outside and Nancy walks out of the house in her pajamas. And what's cool is we don't know if she's awake or asleep.
Right.
You know, and she walks down the street looking around and calls out for Glenn and says, are you still watching? And he comes out of the trees. So is she awake or asleep?
I love this segment. I think she's asleep I think she's asleep.
I think she's asleep.
But I think she's talking in her sleep.
And I think he is sitting next to her.
Yes.
And says, yeah, I'm right here.
Yeah.
And in her dream, she constructs him coming out of the tree.
Exactly, which is a cool little segment.
Yeah. And she sees a door with a red light, and she walks up to a door with broken glass and looks through it. And again, we know what's going on here. We hear the breath.
Right.
She looks down, and suddenly she sees Rod in his cell. And in walks Freddy Krueger. By the way, did you notice they mostly call him Fred Krueger in this movie?
Right at the beginning.
Yeah. Freddy kind of goes through the bars in a classic, sort of effect. Mm-hmm. And she calls for him. She screams. She tries to wake Rod up. Rod wakes up. And then there's Tina in the bloody body bag.
Yeah.
And a centipede comes out of her mouth. It is nasty.
It is.
So apparently, Amanda Wyss, she didn't quite know that some of the stuff that she was in for, and this was rough. I mean, the centipede it's two shots. So one is her real face with a fake rubber centipede coming out of her mouth, and then there's a mask with the real centipede coming out. But then the like snakes or eels or whatever the hell are at her feet. That's just her.
Wow.
Covered in that stuff.
Yeah.
Pretty nasty.
She still does conventions and stuff.
Oh, does she?
Yeah,
Of course
yeah.
she does.
She's great. Still beautiful, too.
And now Nancy is going, Glenn, wake up. And no Glenn.
Because
but
Glenn's asleep.
Here's Freddy, and she runs back to the house. She runs through the door. The music is going. She runs up the stairs, which collapse into goo as she runs, which apparently is pancake batter. And by the way, when they're shooting this, they're totally running out of money. And Sean, what's his name from New Line?
Oh, yeah.
Is on the set going, you got to finish. You got to cut this scene.
Yeah.
And Wes Craven's way of keeping him interested, it's like, hey, this idea about the steps, this was your idea. Why don't you direct today? And has him direct that scene.
So Bob Shaye's directing these
Bob
scenes?
Shaye is directing maybe a little bit of this scene to just keep him from pulling the plug.
That's great.
And Freddy comes in and Nancy's screaming to help me, and she goes into her room, and there's Glenn asleep. And she is saying, it's just a dream. It's just a dream. She's in front of a mirror. Freddy comes through that mirror. She fights with him. She calls for Glenn. She holds up a pillow. He slices it with the claws, and then the alarm goes off, and Glenn wakes up, and she wakes up, and there's no Freddy.
Right.
And I love that she turns to him and calls him a bastard.
I just asked you to do one thing. Just stay awake and watch me. Just wake me up if it looked like I was having a bad dream.
And then they hear Mom's voice, and Glenn's got to go back out the window. And we see that one feather floating in the air.
Yeah.
She's back at the jail. She wants to see Rod. She in the cell, Rod is asleep, and some sheets are starting to move around him, and they reach up and they strangle him just as John Saxon and Nancy come in, and they find Rod hanging dead, which they think he killed himself.
Right.
Which I'm fairly certain he did not.
No.
There's something else going on. It's his funeral. I love that the priest says, he who lives by the sword shall die by the sword. It's like, what a dick. It's like you just burying a kid and you're saying, hey. And then
This is small town America, Steve.
and then the next thing he says is, judge not, lest ye be judged.
Right.
It's like, what did you just say, dude?
I think that's Wes's little subtle shot at religion.
Well, again, I mean, you
Yeah.
can't look at all these horror films without seeing, some echoes of all of our religious pasts,
Well, also him with his fundamentalist past as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Nancy's trying to convince her dad that the killer, that's not Rod.
Who?
I don't know who he is, but he's burned, and he wears a weird hat, and a red and green sweater really dirty, and he uses these knives, like giant fingernails.
John Saxon says, take her home, and Mom says, I've got something better. I'm going to get her some help, and drives away.
Right.
Okay, Mom, you sent something.
Yeah. Just from the way you started. Yes?
To be clear, if I understand the backstory correctly, Mom and some other people killed Freddy Krueger.
Yes. They burnt him.
They burnt him.
Right.
Was John Saxon involved in this?
I don't know if he was involved in it. Obviously, he didn't stop it.
I think he was. There's moments later in the movie where there seems to be some acknowledgement that he knows. Plus, he was married to Mom.
Yes, he was.
One would assume that the murderer of 20 children, which is what Freddy Krueger did, and his subsequent murder would probably be something that was well known.
Yes.
And certainly, now maybe his wife never told him that she actually killed Freddy Krueger, but he would still know about, they're the cop in the town.
Right.
Well, and the other thing is, how long ago did this happen?
That's what I mean. I don't know if he was the cop of the town when this happened.
She says when she we're going to get there, but I'll just jump ahead. When she reveals this thing about that she killed Freddy Krueger, she says some of us parents got together.
Yeah.
She doesn't say some of us killed. I always assumed, my memory of it was that she had been Nancy's age.
Right.
When this happened.
No, the parents.
But she says parents. Well, if she says that means Nancy was alive.
Yes, and Nancy was maybe 5 or 6 years old.
So this happened 10 years ago.
Right.
Maybe 12 years at the most.
Yeah.
So this isn't very long ago, which means this story doesn't quite fit.
I just feel like he wasn't a part of it.
Okay.
And she said some of us parents she didn't say your dad and I got together with a bunch of other parents. She said some of us parents.
Us parents. Well,
so to me, that doesn't feel like her dad was involved.
But she just said in front of her mom,
yeah,
green and red sweater, dirty guy, burned face, claws.
Right.
And her mom doesn't go, oh shit.
Right.
Or even say, like, I know who that is. Her mom says, I'm going to get her some help and take her to the Sleep Institute. Because the problem is my daughter's crazy. She's having nightmares. The problem is not something else.
Not yet.
Yeah.
In her mind.
Now, Mom seems to be continuously drunk. So the fact that she's not,
or high.
There's a lot of stuff going on with her.
Not a good mom.
No, I'm going to say not a good mom.
Yeah.
We're off to the Sleep Institute. We're going to do a sleep study with Dr. Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, Charles Fleischer. One of the creepiest dudes, man.
Such an odd man.
Yeah.
And this has got to be right when he made Roger Rabbit, too, because that's like 85.
Sure. But it's also right out of Welcome Back, Kotter. If you remember, he was a big part of Welcome Back, Kotter. He was Balberine. He always hassled the Sweathogs. He was always the main villain.
I didn't remember
against
that.
the Sweathogs.
That's
Charles
hilarious.
Fleischer. Yeah, go back and watch those old episodes.
That's hilarious.
You kids.
Do you really think of all the media available to the young people today that it's Welcome Back, Kotter that
Let me
you
tell
go
you
watch?
something. Welcome Back, Kotter is a
Oh,
damn
I
good
loved it.
show.
I don't know that it is. I loved it when it was on.
Right. John Travolta.
Look, I loved Horseshack.
Ron Palillo.
I mean, and Washington, and what was the other guy?
Juan Epstein.
Juan Epstein.
Right.
Yeah.
He's a Puerto Rican Jew.
Look, there's a lot of good stuff going on in there.
I'm just saying.
So they're doing a sleep study. They put some stuff on her. He says watches her going to REM sleep. Oh, she's starting to dream. It's going to go up to 3 or 4. Wait a second. What's going on?
Doctor, what's she doing now? Is she asleep or awake?
Something's wrong. It never gets this high.
What's she doing? Is she dreaming?
They run in to wake her up. She's freaking out. And they see now she has white in her hair.
Mm-hmm. That's an awesome scene.
That's awesome.
Right.
And then he goes, here, let me give you something to help you sleep. No. And what else does she have? The hat.
Yes.
So you can bring stuff out of the dreams. I think this is really cheesy and stupid.
What?
The scene.
Oh, okay.
The way it's done.
But it was already established you could, because if Freddy could kill her in the dream, that's essentially
Well, and
bringing
if she
his
could get
claws out
burned,
into the dream.
or if we could have the nightgown. I'm not saying the concept. I'm just saying the way this scene is done.
Right, gotcha. Well,
it's just
fair enough. Fair enough.
And Mom is hiding another bottle of vodka.
That's like the worst mom.
She's terrible. Nancy is just drinking coffee because she doesn't want to go to sleep. She wants to have Dad examine the hat,
Right.
To find out where it came from.
John Saxon is perpetually perplexed. He's perpetually perplexed
Yes.
throughout the whole movie about what's happening. Like, he's just so behind everything that's happening until the very end. It's very funny.
And Mom is still debating with Nancy about whether or not this thing is real. And she's like, no, I have a hat. Like, and Mom knows the killer. She actually killed the killer.
Right. Let me ask you something. Do you think this is where the alcoholism started?
Yes, absolutely.
when she killed Freddy.
Yes, I think she's dealing with. I think that is the
Yep.
idea.
I think I
She's
agree
never
with that.
recovered from that.
Yep. And now he's come for retribution.
Give me that damn thing. It even has his name written in it. Fred Krueger, Mom. Fred Krueger. Do you know who that is, Mother? Because if you do, you better tell me because he's after me now.
And Mom just says, "Go to sleep. You'll feel better when you go to sleep."
What a shock. She doesn't want to deal with it.
Yeah. And she goes, "Well, or maybe I'll feel better when I jump into the bottle like you." And now we get the slap.
Fred Krueger can't come after you, Nancy. He's dead. Believe me, I know. You knew about him all this time? And you've been acting like it was something I made up?
And Mom's like, "You're sick. You're imagining it."
Super betrayal by the mom here.
Nancy and Glenn are on a bridge, and now, man, Glenn lays on some deep dream stuff because he tells her about the Balinese way of dreaming, where they can take control of their dreams and they actually learn that, you know, the energy they give to the demons in their dreams makes them powerful. And she asks, "Well, what do you do if there's a monster in your dream?" And he says, "Well, you just turn your back on it and take all its energy away." Nice job, Glenn. Too bad this is not going to work for you, but it was still really, really a nice job.
When you listen to commentary in this scene, do either of them say that Johnny came up with this and installed it in them? Because it feels like something Depp would come up with and have. Like, hey, I read this. This would be kind of cool to maybe say this in the movie. I could see that.
No one says anything like that.
Okay.
But you could start that rumor right here on the Cine-files if you like.
Sure.
You know what's really funny? There's stories that I have heard but wasn't 100% sure of that I've then repeated on the Cine-files.
Oh.
Which now I usually try to say, like I said about the Johnny Depp being in a band.
Yeah.
I believe I saw that when he was on Inside the Actors Studio, but I haven't checked it. But now someone will hear it from us and they will go out and that will be the truth.
Yes.
And that is fake news, ladies and gentlemen.
Fake news.
Yeah. She gets back to her house. House is covered with bars on the windows and the doors. They work fast. That's a lot of work.
How is she sober enough to even get this to happen?
Well, and they lock from the inside. And
Yeah.
she can't be trusted with a key.
It's way too complex for her to even come up with.
And Mom looking just totally... I agree. Ronnie Blakely is in a totally different movie. Because her standing at the top of the basement door saying, "Come down to the basement with me," is just weird. And we go down to the basement and she opens up the furnace, reaches into the furnace and pulls out a burlap sack with the glove and the claws.
Yep.
Now, my understanding is that furnaces are filled with fire. How has this burlap sack survived in there? Do they never get cold?
Yeah, maybe.
And this is where she says that we killed this guy, Freddy Krueger, that he was a child murderer.
Yeah.
And we took gasoline and poured it all over the place. This is some messed up stuff. And then she says, "So now you can go to sleep."
It's country justice.
So by the way, someone's saying that the person that I've been dreaming of that's trying to kill me, where I get burnt in the dream, that where these other two people that also dreamt of him are dead. And someone's saying, "No, that's a real person who your mom murdered by lighting him on fire," does not make me feel cool.
No.
Like now I can go to sleep.
Right.
Johnny Depp is listening to music. And can we take a moment to admire the cut-off football jersey he is wearing, the bare midriff.
Yeah.
That is an 80s style that...
Something Johnny Depp would never actually wear in real life.
It's great. And they're talking, apparently they're in houses right across the street, which is actually where they filmed it. And they are talking, they make jokes about the bars. And then she tells him, that about Freddy Krueger, and that if he gets me, I'm going to be dead. Yeah. And that she needs, again, his help. I'm going to bring him out of the dream world and you're going to clock him with a baseball bat or something. I have no idea how this plan is going to work when she is in a house across the street, locked in with bars on the doors and windows. How is Johnny Depp going to be anywhere near her to make this plan work?
No, these are teenagers, man.
Yeah. But he agrees and she says, "You must think I'm crazy." He says, "You are crazy, but I love you."
Boom.
Yeah.
Which means I would still like to sleep with you.
Right.
So I'm going to tell you this.
Even knowing that might mean your imminent death.
True.
And he puts his headphones back on.
Some things are more important than death, Steve.
Fair. Particularly when you're like a 15-year-old boy.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. Risk death for it.
Nancy's still trying not to fall asleep. She's taking her pills. I love Mom comes in, gets rid of the coffee. She leaves, and Nancy pulls another coffee maker that's on out of some cabinet. That's awesome.
Yeah. Wes throws in these funny little jokes throughout the movie that I think are brilliant.
And the plan is it's going to happen at midnight. The time is 11:42. And she's drinking her coffee. There's a little, one of our sexy moments as she takes her, we see her back, her bare back as she changes. That is completely gratuitous, but important for these kinds of films.
Completely gratuitous. And
now we see that Johnny Depp's parents are sitting on the front stoop looking up at Nancy's house with all the bars, talking about how crazy she is. Yeah. And she doesn't want that. Dad, who's a fine actor, doesn't want that lunatic around their son.
Yeah. Their son is not the issue.
Nancy's wounds are still bleeding. I don't think I mentioned before that when she came out of one of the dreams, she has some wounds on her arm, and she sees Mom pulling another bottle of vodka out of the linen closet.
Yes,
and now she tries to call Glenn. Glenn's mom answers, says Glenn's asleep. Dad grabs the phone and says, "You talk to her in the morning." Hangs it up, and then says, "You have to be firm with these kids," and then goes, "As a matter of fact," and he takes the phone off the hook.
Oh, big mistake.
Nancy tries to call again, can't, and now the phone makes this really weird noise. So she rips it out of the wall. Very important bit of direction is that she makes, Wes Craven makes her hold up the wire to make it very clear that the phone has been ripped out of the wall, because in the next moment, the phone rings again.
Yes.
And obviously we know this is bad. She picks up the phone, she holds it to her face, and we hear, "I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy." And then, on the receiver,
the tongue, bud.
Suddenly a mouth and a tongue.
That's so good.
Apparently, this is like the biggest scream in the movie when they first screened it.
No surprise.
Because it is weird and creepy.
Yep.
Here's the thing. Is she awake?
No.
She's asleep?
Yes.
This is where I go like, wait. But did she? So maybe because she's so exhausted, she hasn't slept in days.
Yeah,
is she's just having moments of out and in?
Yes, that's what I think's happening.
Yeah, she runs downstairs, but she can't get out of the door. And drunk Mom is just in another time zone.
Yeah,
going, "No, I locked it. I don't have the key." And by the way, building a house where you lock yourself in is not a smart thing to do.
It's an interesting situation.
And we cut to Glenn. We hear the national anthem because it's sign off, which is a thing that used to happen. And then he's asleep. And then Freddy's arms come out of that bed, grab him, pull him down in the hole, followed by TVs and everything else into this hole. And then blood shoots out of that hole and sprays the ceiling.
I feel like this is an homage to The Shining.
It is.
Yes? Okay.
And it 100% is. That's what they were thinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it is, to me, where this film, for just a few seconds, goes next level.
I agree.
Because this is one of the scariest moments I've ever seen in any film, because of Johnny's acting as well. The desperation, the fear, the sadness, the horror, all of it. It mirrors what happens to Quint when he has to kick off the jaws, the shark, until he finally bites him. Just the terror and the fear and the inevitability of it all. And then just to punctuate it after a pause, which I think is brilliant. The wait, a few seconds, and then whoosh, all this blood. It just shows you that we're going next level now.
And by the way, we're back on the same set where Tina is killed, because this is the rotating set. Because the way that they did this is that after you get rid of Johnny Depp, they rotate the set so the bed is on the ceiling.
Yeah.
And they just pour 220 gallons of blood down from the ceiling to the floor, and that's all you're seeing.
Damn.
And it looks horrifying and disturbing and great.
Yep.
It's later. The cops are showing up. We get some jokes about buckets and never seen anything like that before, and coroners throwing up in the bathroom, and John Saxon is there. And Nancy calls over because she knows what happened, and she's trying to tell him.
Listen, Daddy, I've got a proposition for you.
Nancy.
I'm gonna go and get the guy who did it. And I want you to be there to arrest him when I bring him out, okay?
And she says, "Come here in exactly 20 minutes. I'm going to sleep." And he says, "Yeah, you do that. Get some rest."
Yeah.
Good job, John Saxon.
Once again, 2-3 steps behind what's actually happening.
And she goes, "But you'll be here." And he goes, "Oh, yeah. It's a deal? Okay, deal." And then he tells his dumb other cop, go outside my daughter's house and see if anything funny happens, tell me. So, and one thing I didn't mention, when Nancy and Glenn are on that bridge talking about dreams, she also says, well, I've been reading about anti-personnel mines and, and intruder controls and all this stuff. It's like, really? She's like, because I'm going to fight back. And now we get to see our sort of A-team montage of her setting up the traps. She's like putting holes in light bulbs and filling them with gunpowder. She's running wires. She's making booby traps. She's doing all sorts of stuff. Yep. And then we're back to the crime scene, and John Saxon is looking at the horribleness there, and Nancy is with Mom, who's saying, well, I guess I should have told you. It's like, damn right you should have told us.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And then just get some sleep. It's going to be okay. Like, we're pretty sure that's not going to work. Nancy says, I love you, and she says, I love you too. Again, I think this scene is somewhat ridiculous. Yeah. It's really just kind of way off in the... And part of it is just the Ronnie Blakely performance. It's just...
I think Heather's doing fine.
She's fine.
It's Ronnie.
But it's the writing of the scene, and it's Ronnie. Yeah. It's just like, come on, this is silly. Nancy sets her alarm clock. She has a little digital watch, which were pretty cool in the early 80s. Mm-hmm. And she goes to bed and says, and now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep.
And if I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take.
There's the top-down shot, and the camera pushes in. And we hear, just in case you didn't remember, this line about turning your back on a monster to steal its energy in a dream. Yeah. And then Nancy's going down the stairs. She goes down to the basement. In the basement, she goes to the furnace. She finds where the sack where the glove was. It ain't there. She finds another door. She goes down more stairs, and now we're down in that boiler room. We hear laughter. We hear voices. We hear whispering. And now she's ready because she's ready to do some battle. Yeah.
I'm ready to show you yourself, you bastard!
That is totally the line that a beginning writer would write.
Yeah.
That's like, no human says, show yourself, you bastard.
You bastard.
Yeah. And then Freddy comes out and attacks, and she falls, and she falls from the boiler room set to the outside of her house. You could totally see the bag that she hits, the fall bag, and the stunt person hitting it. It just looks terrible. And she yells, where are you, you pervert? And again, she's calling to him. Yeah. And Freddy comes out of the bushes, and she leaps up and grabs him just as the alarm goes off. And she wakes up, and she's in the bedroom, and she has brought him through into the awaking world. And at first she looks up and doesn't see him and thinks she's crazy, and then realizes, no, she's done it. She attacks. She breaks a bottle over his head. We get the booby trap at the door with the sledgehammer, which somehow knocks him down the stairs. Mm-hmm. She runs down the stairs, breaks a window, and is yelling out to that cop, I've got him. And the cop's going, everything will be okay. Breaks another window, yells some more, and then he finally goes, I guess maybe I should get the lieutenant over here. Down in the basement, she grabs a big bottle, breaks it over him, lights it on fire, and we get a really long fire run, which is the main stunt guy, who's got to weigh 70 pounds more than Robert Englund.
Yeah, true.
He's a big guy. And he said, I don't know how many movies we've heard this. This is the longest fire run ever filmed. We heard it on Braveheart. We've heard it on several movies. Yeah. I don't know what the real record is. Again, and he runs up the stairs, falls down the stairs, back up the stairs. Again, she's screaming for Dad's help. Dad runs to try to open the door. They break down the door. She sends him down to the basement where they see these bloody steps. We go, he's after Mom. Upstairs, we see Freddy attacking Mom, and then Saxon smothers the fire with a blanket and takes off the blanket, and we just see a desiccated Mom body fall through a glowing blue bed. And then she's gone, and she's like, so Dad, now do you believe me? John Saxon hugs his daughter, and she says, I'm okay, you go downstairs. And Nancy looks down at the bed, hears a loud noise. The bed starts to smoke as she's looking away. The sheets rise up. Nancy is in the foreground, not looking, and says, I know you're there, Freddy.
I know you're there, Freddy.
You think you was going to get away from me?
It's too late, Krueger. I know the secret now. This whole thing is just a dream. I want my mother and Fred again.
What?
I take back every bit of energy I gave you.
She turns away, grabs the door handle, and he rushes to kill her and disappears. And suddenly, everything's bright. We're outside. We're with Mom. And Mom said, they talk about, how bright it is and, oh, I'm feeling better.
Oh, I feel like $1 million. They say you've bottomed out when you can't remember the night before. No, baby, I'm gonna stop drinking. I just don't feel like it anymore.
I just don't feel like it anymore.
All of a sudden.
This is just ridiculous and intentionally ridiculous, I guess. Right. They say goodbye. She goes out into this white, sort of foggy world, and there's her friends, Tina and Rod and Johnny Depp in a convertible. They get in the convertible. Everything seems to be cool, and then we see the convertible top get up, and it is green and red, just like the sweater. And then the doors all get locked.
Hey, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. What's going on with the window?
And she's screaming for help from her mom, and we cut back to Mom in front of the door, and an arm comes through the door, pulls a mannequin back through the window, and we have reached the end of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, man.
Because you can't end a movie with it just being okay.
No.
Yeah.
You got to have some kind of hint that this fight is not over.
Apparently, they shot like 5 different endings. And you can see them all different. Like one is they get in the car and it's Freddy Krueger driving the car.
Yeah. I've seen that one. I think.
There's other ones.
Yeah.
The first cut was terrible, but then they made a cut that they're really happy with it. They tested a few times. It looks really good. They're about to take it out to the theaters, and the people making the prints won't release the prints because they haven't been paid. Suddenly, it was $180,000 more.
Holy crap!
Movie prints are expensive.
No doubt.
To get it out, and again, Bob Shea gets the money together at the last minute to release it in the theaters, and it is a huge hit. $1.8 million budget, $25 million in box office.
Wow.
And of course, spawns a whole thing.
Yep.
That it goes on and on and on.
Multiple installments, reboot.
Yep.
Even now, and Freddy versus Jason, which I think is a fun movie, but even now people are still clamoring for Freddy to come back because he's an iconic villain, and dreams are something that are generational. Like, you'll never need to stop enjoying these films because dreams are so universal.
Well, and they are completely they huge opportunities for invention because anything can happen in a dream. Yeah. Like, there's only so many ways that Michael Myers can walk slowly after you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and what those movies tend to be about, and again, I'm not an expert on them, but is what original ways can I kill you?
Right.
But there's so many more things you can do in a dream that are visually interesting and disturbing that I think leads to have all these sequels.
Yeah, sure.
John, do you have final thoughts?
Yeah, here's final thoughts. I would say that talking about the film, I enjoyed it more than I remembered. And there are a lot of fun sequences from Wes Craven in the movie. Certainly some good acting performances from Robert Englund and Heather Langenkamp. And Amanda Wyss is good as well. And I think what you have to enjoy about the movie are the moments within the scenes. And what you have to forget about the movie or forgive about the movie is the dated feeling or nature of it. Certainly, Ronnie Blakely is weird as hell in the movie. John Saxon is a very incompetent sheriff, I would say, or deputy, whatever he is, of that town. But overall, I think this all hinges on this idea of, as a teenager, and I think maybe, I don't know if Wes said this, but like, it feels like this is essentially the raging hormones type of thing. You create these ideas, you create these things, your emotion, you can't control, right? This idea that you can't control these things as a teenager, what it can lead to, death, destruction, whatever, what have you. The blood analogy of period, all of that is there. So there's a lot within the film that you could dissect on deeper levels. But overall, it's just a fun 80s film, and certainly iconic because it spawned so many main studio sequels, so you have to give it its due in that way. And Robert Englund is still a fantastic Freddy Krueger, and someone people clamor all the time to come back and don the claws again. But yeah, that's what I would say. I actually found myself enjoying conversing about the film a lot more than I did watching it.
Well, that's because we really enjoy each other's company and like talking about stuff. By the way, I should have said a long time ago, from what I've heard, from the moment Robert Englund got this part, he ate it up.
Oh,
he was so excited for every scene. He put 100% into this thing.
Yeah.
And it shows.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my final thoughts. For those of you who have listened to the show for a while, you know that that I really care about craftsmanship, hard work, detail-oriented. The things I enjoy in terms of films is the talented people that put the movie together. And one of the things I find frustrating about the Hollywood industry is that they tend to value ideas over craftsmanship. So frequently when a movie gets sold, it gets sold not because the script is beautifully crafted, but because the studio sees in it an idea that they think they can make a lot of money on.
Right.
And then they will fire the writer and fire a writer and keep rewriting and rewriting until they can turn the movie into something that they can make. Sometimes that's a successful process. Sometimes it's a terrible process, as we see over and over again. And I always kind of go, if you valued talent and hard work and craftsmanship, we would have much better movies in general than we do with this sort of questing after an idea.
Yeah.
Having watched this film, which I haven't seen in a long time, I kind of am like, the ideas of this movie are great.
Yes.
The movie is not. That's kind of how I feel.
I think it's a good point.
And so like the idea of the creature that hunts you through your dreams and how that and the blending of reality and dream and what is real and what is not real and what am I creating and what am I bringing to it, and you know, how does Freddy actually enter into my own mind and see my fears and all those things. Those are all fascinating ideas, many of which are what we can explore in later films.
Yeah.
And so what I admire about the film is kind of opening up a new window into ways to scare the crap out of us. And I'm not, I don't mean to be critical of Wes Craven, because he had $1.8 million and 30 days to shoot a fairly complicated movie.
Yeah.
And I think he's very successful. But do I hold this up as a great film? No, I don't, because it just doesn't have the craftsmanship that I think is necessary. What it has is the spark of the beginning of a whole bunch of other stuff that's going to come later.
Yeah, and a universal nature to it all, because we all have nightmares and dreams, as you said earlier.
Yeah. So that's what we think of A Nightmare on Elm Street. We really would like to hear what you think. Take a visit to our Facebook page. You know what I'm going to do this time? Let's put up a post with some questions on Facebook.
Yeah.
And that we can, you know, because there's some things we would like to discuss. We'd like to hear, maybe, what is your favorite of the Nightmare of Elm Street movies?
Yeah.
How do you think these different of the big bad, you know, Jason and Freddy and Leatherface, Michael Myers, how do they compare to each other? Which of their things scare you the most? We're going to put some up on Facebook because we'd love to hear some discussion from you. Of course, you can also watch the show or subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. Go to YouTube, leave your comments on YouTube. Please leave your reviews on iTunes. If you haven't done it yet and you like the show a lot, we really could use it because it brings us up in the rankings. And if you want to support the show or suggest something, as we said before, patreon.com/thecine-files. If you want to buy A Nightmare on Elm Street or any film we've ever reviewed, go to cine-files.net. And if you want to reach me, you can do so on Twitter at @SRMorris. John, where can they reach you?
Yeah, you can always find me at The Roca Says on Twitter and on Instagram. And just to let you guys know, Steve and I have been having some meetings recently, and we are going to make some really positive changes, we feel, to the Patreon and the construction of the show that I think a lot of you are going to be incredibly happy about. And we can't thank the people who are going to be helping us enough, but I think we're going to be taking these next few steps very positively to an even better version of the Cine-files, and I hope that excites all of you who listen to us, because that's what's great about the show, is the evolution of the show and how it's really latched on to so many of you and how much you support us and love the show. I recently read a comment on Facebook or Twitter about how, God, going back and listening to the older episodes, right? It feels so weird to compare them to now because they were a little bit all over the place. And I would say to you, yeah, because we were still finding what this show was. And now that we know what the show is, we want to improve it even more for you all and for us.
Absolutely. And so I think that's it for this week. We will see you next time on The Cine-files.